Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, see you again at sixth class meeting of applied and practical application of macroeconomics. And here we have been in the fifth chapter of this course, namely the open economy. So this chapter is aimed to account identities for the open economy, and a small open economy model will be learned, and by looking at what makes it small in terms of the economic size and how the trade balance and exchange rate are determined if we have a small and open economy, and how policy affects trade balance and exchange rate. And here is the performance of some selected countries in terms of the import and export as the percentage of output in 2000. And you see that some of the European countries on these cases are having active and quite significant percentage of the GDP in terms of the international trade. And in open economy, we have two statements that need to be constant, namely that in open economy, spending did not equal output. Why it happens? Because in open economy, we deal with international commodities, whereby it consists of export and import activities, whereby these two activities is spending of the partner countries, not need directed to the real output produced by the host country. And saving need not equal investments. So because international trade is the basic need for a country to grow. Therefore, a country does not need enough amount of saving in order to have a particular level of investments, and vice versa, because they can ask for international communities to assist them in order to fulfill the gaps of saving and investment. And here is the preliminary equations. If you see from the consumption basis, here is the consumption D means domestic plus consumption of foreigners. Yeah. And investment here is domestic plus foreign goods. And the government here also spending for domestic needs plus for the foreign needs. And export and imports here is not necessarily referring to the previous ones, whereby export and import basically is the international activities that are conducted by every single country in order to support the domestic need and expand their foreign trading in a particular period of year. And this one we have understood before that if we talk about export and import, we will discuss about net export, whereby it is the difference between export and import, whereby is the net export here NX more than zero, the country has a trade surplus or equal to NX. And if the NX is less than zero, it means that it has a trade deficit. So here's examples of the four sectors equation of national income, whereby the Y equal to C plus I plus G plus export and import. So if we expand equation into C minus CF and others here, we can get that CIG plus EX equal to CF plus IF plus a GF. What about the CF, IF, and GF basically is the imports. So EF here basically comprises of the foreign consumption, foreign investment, and foreign government spending. And in the end, we have the equation of C plus I plus G plus net export. So net export here comprises of the difference between the domestic um, export and also the foreign import. And here, if we try to break down the above equations that we have, is the y equal to ci plus I plus g plus nx, or the nx equal to y minus open bracket c plus I plus g close bracket, whereby the CIG is considered to be domestic spending, and the Y here is our national output, and the NX here is the net exports. So net export basically is the difference in the internal, the national output, and the domestic spending. So if you have a higher net export, it means that your trade is surplus. It means that your output here is beyond of your domestic spending, and vice versa. And here we also are recognizing the presence of international capital flows, whereby the capital flows here dealing with the saving and investment. And here the net capital outflows basically refers to the net outflow of loanable funds. Loanable funds mean the fund that readily to be loaned or readily to be financed or borrowed by debtors. And it refers to the net purchases of the foreign assets. The country's purchases of foreign assets minus foreign purchases of domestic assets. So the use of the capital flows here not only just for loanable funds, but also to purchase the foreign assets. Yeah. So here, if the saving in relation with saving and investment, we have a simple equation. When the S is saving more than investment, the country is a net lender. So the saving is higher compared to investment, and the way around. The country is a net borrower. So in case that the country is a net lender, so it has a huge or bigger amount of loanable funds, and it has ability to purchase the foreign assets. Yeah. And the way around, if the country is a net borrower, it is less ability to the country to loan the funds to another countries, and also it has not been able to purchase the foreign assets. And here is the another important identity equations, whereby in the previous discussion we learned about nx equal to y minus cig, implies that the nx here is equal to y equal to y minus c minus g and minus 1. So if you open the bracket, you can just break down, and you can open out, and you can just take it out the I here of the brackets, and you see that the y minus c minus g is basically a saving. Basically it is saving here. So to what extent the output can be produced is basically is the ability of the country to create wealth, to create the income in the country. So the more income, the more output they can produce. It means that the probability to have more saving is higher. And this on this regard, here is the proxy for saving then, and the saving minus I here equal to net export. So net export basically is the trade balance, which whereby this NX deals with the real goods, yeah, the flows of goods and services. And the right hand side here, S minus I, actually is the net capital flows, net capital outflows or the flows of capitals. So if the S here is bigger than I, it means that we have the surplus in terms of the flows of the capital. So basically in the international or open economy, we try to compare and contrast between the uh, ability of the goods and services flowing in the economy, and then the amount of capitals or fund flowing in the economies. So we equate them into trade balance equal to the net capital flows. So the financing of the goods and services must be linear or complied with the availability of the fund um, from the international transactions. And here we have the saving and investment in small and open economy. An open economy version of the loanable funds model includes many of the same elements. So you have learned before that production function is equal to y of the function of capital and labor, and consumption function here is the consumption, so the function of y minus tax, and investment function here is the function of interest rate, real interest rate, and exogenous policy variables here is the government spending and the tax income. And here is the simple graphs to show you about the national savings in terms of the supply of loanable funds. And the vertical axis here is the real interest rate, and the horizontal axis here is the saving and investment. As in chapter 3, national saving does not depend on the interest rate. So national saving basically is not or independent from interest rate, because the national saving basically is the difference between the output and the domestic consumptions. As I mentioned before, that the saving of a national saving basically is the difference between the output produced by domestically countries minus the domestic consumptions and domestic government spending. So here we put it as the vertical, vertical, because the number of saving is not related with the interest rate, because the saving here only depends on the amount of income or output produced by a country, and then to what extent the consumption and government spending of domestic goods, not related with the interest rate. And the second one here is assumptions. Looking at the open economy, we have three main assumptions. The first is domestic and foreign bonds are perfect substitutes. So it means that the investors are freely selecting which one between the domestic and foreign bonds that are giving them a very high returns. So they are very easily transacted in international transactions. so that they are not really difficult to be exchanged, either from domestic to foreign or foreign to domestic bonds. The second one, perfect capital mobility. There's no restrictions on international trade in asset. So the asset can be flowing freely, either from domestic to international or international to domestic, without any barriers, without any cost, or if there is a cost, it's not so significant at all. And the third one is, if we look at the economy is small. Small means the economy cannot affect the world interest rate or R. So we, a small and open economy, tends to follow what the policy taken by the um, open and big economy. Yeah, so it implies that the point A and B makes the R here, the domestic interest rate equal to the world interest rate or R star. And the C implies that the world interest rate is exogenous. So the world interest rate is beyond the control of domestic institutions. They can raise, they can up and down based on their interest. And we, as a small and open economy, tends to adjust or maybe comply with the policy taken by the global communities. These are the assumptions that really happen in the existing discussion on open and small economy. And here is the graphs of the investment in terms of the demand for renewable funds. And here you can see that the R here in the vertical axis and the horizontal axis denotes for saving and investments. And we talk about investment here, we deal with the real interest rate. Yeah, the return of the particular asset investment in instruments, financial instruments. And the shape here tend to be negatively slopes. Yeah, it does mean that if the interest rate increases, so it will reduce the level of investments. So it is quite makes sense because of, if we talk about R star here, it refers to the world interest rate. So if the world interest rate increases here, it will attract the fund from small and open economy to flowing out, yeah, to flow out of the country. So surely it will reduce the amount of loanable funds, yeah, in domestic countries, and then it will reduce the level of investment in that domestic country. So it will move left to the left in terms of the investment level. And the second one is that here is the equilibrium of the saving and investment if we form the economy as the closed. So here is the interest rate of the investment negatively slope, and here the level of saving, vertical axis. And then you can see that the equilibrium here in the RC and the IRC. Yeah, so interest rate would adjust to equate investment and saving. So interest rate here is the price of the capital as well as the price of the goods in the economy. So it can equate the level of saving and investment in a particular countries. But in the small and open economy, it is different. We have here the exogenous world interest rate determine the investments. So the domestic interest rate is not determined by only the domestic activities or conditions, but also from the world interest rate. So because of here the world interest rate increases, so it will rises or will spike up the rate here from the RC to the R stars. So the impact here is the investment will move from this one to the I1. So from the I1 here, you can see the gaps. From the gaps here, the gaps mean the NX. In this case, the saving here is the saving here is higher compared to the investment on this case, because the higher interest rate will attract more capital to flow uh, into a domestic country, so that the NX will be positive. So the capital flows will be positive. Yeah, will be positive. The NX, yeah, the NX will be positive because saving is higher compared to the interest rate. And there's three experiments in looking at the policy of in the open and small economy. First, at the fiscal policy at home. So we conduct fiscal policy in home country, and the fiscal policy from abroad. It means that fiscal policy coming from the another countries or partners countries. And the third one, an increase in investment demand. Yeah. Let we look at the difference of these three experiments. The first one, fiscal policy at home. So the fiscal policy deals with the government spending and taxes. And here we have example of an increase in the government spending or decrease in taxes. So if a government increase the government spending or reducing the tax, for sure it will change the equilibrium of the saving. Yeah, in this case, the saving will save to the left. Yeah, here from the S1 to the S2, and if the saving left from the S1 to the S2, it will reduce the level of net export, yeah, in this country. Yeah, here it reduces from an X1 to an X2. So now this fiscal policy will imply to the NX only NX2. NX2. So it means that the net export is decreasing to NX2. Yeah. And the second one, if we have, okay, this one is the example of the budget deficit. Yeah. So basically, the budget deficit of the government will reduce the saving, and then will reduce the net export, will reduce the ability of the country to promote the surplus of net export, actually. Yeah. And here the fiscal policy abroad. Yeah. So the fiscal policy coming from the foreign countries. For example, here expansionary fiscal policy abroad rises the world interest rate. Yeah. So here is the interest rate rises from the R1 star to R2 star, and this increasing of the R because of the rising of the interest rate from a big country, big and open economy. Yeah, so it will rises the R into R2 star, and it will shift the investment from the ER1 to AR2 here. Yeah. So in the end, the net export basically will increase here from NX1 to the NX2 here. Yeah. So it means that the surplus of this country is bigger. Yeah. If there is expansionary fiscal policy, from abroad, yeah, from other countries. So expansionary fiscal policy means that um, another countries rises the world interest rate. Yeah, so the interest rate is rises from the uh, world perspective. Yeah, and here is the third one: an increase in investment demand. Yeah, so use the models to determine the impact of increase in investment demand. So if the demand increases, here is the increases. The demand increases from the IR1 to IR2. Yeah. So increases here means that it will shift to the right, and it will reduce the NX from NX1 to NX2. So it means that if the investment demand increases, it will reduce the number of net export in a particular countries. Yeah. Why it happens? Because once the investment increases, it will reduce the number of saving. Yeah. By assuming that there is no any changing in output. Yeah. So increasing the demand will be decreasing the saving, and then the trade surplus will be decreased, and it will make the net export also decreasing. Yeah. And the next one is that we turn to learn about nominal exchange rate. Yeah, nominal exchange rate. Here we have E equal to nominal exchange rate, means the relative price of domestic currency in terms of the foreign currency. So, for example, here yen per dollars. Yeah, it is called nominal currency, the price of domestic currency in terms of the foreign currency. And here the example of exchange rate as of June 9, 2002, the price of euro in terms of US dollars and others. Yeah, the price of yen Japan to the US dollars. So other than nominal exchange rate, we do also understand the real interest exchange rate. The real here excellence, the relative price of domestic goods in terms of foreign goods. So if the nominal exchange rate deals with the price of the currency in terms of the foreign currency, now the real exchange rate, basically the price of goods, price of domestic goods in terms of the foreign goods. Yeah. For example, Japanese Big Macs per US Big Macs. Here are the examples. Okay, here the formula. So epsilons, the real exchange rate, equal to the nominal exchange rate times P. This is the domestic inflations, yeah, domestic price over the foreign price, yeah. And here the examples. The good names is a Big Mac. Price in Japan is 200 yen. Yeah. And price in the US is $2.5. Nominal exchange rate is 120 yen per US dollars, nominal exchange rate. So the question is how much the real exchange rate of the Big Mac actually from the Japanese perspective. Namely, 120 times 2.5 is the price of the in foreign countries, and over the price in the domestic countries, yeah, 200, and then you've got 1.5. So it does mean that to buy a US Big Mac, yeah, the same goods, someone from Japan would have to pay an amount that could buy 1.5 Japanese Big Macs. Yeah. So one Big Mac in the US is equal to 1.5 in Japanese Big Macs. So the same goods, but if you pay a Big Mac in by using the US currency, you'll get one Big Mac. But if you pay a Big Mac, purchase a Big Mac by using Japanese yen, you will get 1.5 Big Mac. So that means that the price in the US is more expensive compared to the Big Mac in the Japan, isn't it? So in the real world, we can think that real exchange rate is the relative price of the basket of domestic goods in terms of the basket of foreign goods. In our macro model, there is just one good output. So real interest rate is the relative price of one country's output in terms of the other country's output. So we try to compare between the domestic and the foreign goods in terms of the foreign currencies. Yeah. And here, from the example above, how net export depends on the real exchange rate. So how we relate between the net export and the real exchange rate here. For example, the real interest rate increases. It does mean that US goods become more expensive relative to the foreign goods. So if in the case of Big Mac, just now or previously, you comparing between the price of Big Mac of Japan's and US. And the US here is viewed as the domestic currency, and the Japan's is the foreign or partners country. So it means that with the same goods, the price of Big Mac in the US is more expensive compared to the Big Mac in the Japan. So if it is the case, then the export of the Big Mac will be decreasing, because if you sell the Big Mac to Japan, so it is more expensive. Nobody wants to buy, isn't it? And the import will be higher because you feel that it is cheaper compared to the Big Mac in the US. So the import will be bigger. And overall, if you compare with export and import, you will get the net export is decreasing. So it means that if you have an increase in real exchange rate, it means that your good price is higher compared to the foreign price. So it will reduce your trade balance. So you will have your negative trade balance. So it means that you have to maintain the price of your domestic product compatible and competitive with the foreign, because it will make your net export will decreasing. Yeah, if you keep your price of real exchange rate increases. Here are examples of the graphic, how US net export and the real exchange rate changing between 1975 to 2002, whereby here the net export is the blue one and the real exchange rate is the red one. So if the real exchange rate here lower, so it will increase the net export. And here increasing, decreasing, increasing. And if the real interest rate increases here, the net export also decreasing. So it has a negative relationship. It has the opposite directions, between the net export and real interest rate. And here it means we can make a simple notations that the net export, the functions reflects this inverse relationship between net export and real interest rate. So if the real interest rate here increases, it will decrease the net export and the way around. So that the curve will be like this. Yeah, the curve will be like this. The net export will be negatively slope. Yeah, here negatively slope. And then when real interest rate is relatively low, the US goods are relatively inexpensive, or it means that the price of goods in the US is cheaper compared to the other countries. So US net export will be high. Yeah, here. So if here, for example, here in decreases here, so the net export will be higher and the way around. So if the real interest exchange rate increases, so it will reduce the nominal the net export. And here is the at the high inner value of real interest exchange rate, US goods become so expensive that we export less than we import. Yeah, it makes sense in the mid of higher real exchange rate. It will reduce the net export, yeah, because the product will be not competitive and is not being able to be afforded by the partners. Yeah. So here is the how real interest exchange rate is determined. Previously, we have learned about the accounting identity says that net export equal to the saving minus investment. We saw earlier how a saving minus investment is determined. S depends on domestic factors, output, fiscal policy variables, yeah, and E is determined by the world interest rate, yeah, or R star. So the investment basically is determined by the world interest rate. The saving here depends on the domestic factors such as output, fiscal policy, government, and taxes. Yeah. So if we try to put the real exchange rate into equation, must adjust to ensure that the net export here, the function of real interest rate, the real exchange rate equal to saving minus R, the function of R star. This is the equations. Yeah. So in this case, you can see that between the investment and net export, they have a negative relationship. And between net export and saving, it has positive relationship. Yeah, positive relationship. So if the interest rate higher, yeah, so it means that investment is lower. Yeah, it will make the net export increases. I repeat again. Yeah, I repeat again. For example, here in the case of relationship between net export and investment, for example. So if the interest rate here increases, the world interest rate increases. Yeah. So it will decrease the investment, isn't it? So because the investment decreases, yeah, it will increase, yeah, it will increase the net export. The increase of net export, it means that the real exchange rate basically is lower. Yeah. And also here, saving and net export, if the saving rate, if the saving amount increases, the saving amount increases, yeah, so it will increase the net export. So it does mean that the real exchange rate decreases, yeah, decreases. So these are the implications, yeah, that you can learn from these examples. Here are the examples, yeah. So saving minus investment here, yeah, the vertical line, and here the net export, here the equilibrium, yeah, exchange rate and the net export. Now here actually we have a demand. This is the demand, the foreign need for dollars to buy US net export. This is the demand. And here actually the supply. Yeah, this is the proxy of supply actually. yeah, the supply of available funds, and here's the demand for dollars, yeah, or net export. Okay, we have four experience against here how we practice this implication of in terms of the four conditions. The first is the fiscal policy at home. Yeah, the first here. A fiscal expansion reduces national savings. A fiscal expansion, it means dealing with output and government spending and tax. Yeah, for example, the government increasing the output, or the government increasing the spending, or the government reduces the tax. So it will shift, yeah, the horizontal, the vertical line here to the left, yeah, to the left, yeah, and then it will increase. It will increase the real exchange rate from the E1 to the E2. So it will impact to the net export here. Net export will be decreasing. Why it happens? Because if the real exchange rate increases, it does mean that the price of goods in domestic countries is more expensive compared to the foreign countries. So if the price is more expensive in the domestic countries, it does mean that the price of export is not competitive at all. The export price will be increasing, so it will reduce the demand for the export, and the way around, it is more compatible or competitive to purchase the import good. So it will reduce the NX in the end. Yeah. And the second one is fiscal policy abroad here. So the fiscal policy abroad means there's the increase in world interest rate. Yeah, so increase in world interest rate reduces investment. So the vertical line here shift to the left, to the right. Yeah, so the right here. So it means that the real exchange rate will decrease. Yeah, will decrease. Yeah, so the price of it will impact the price of goods in this domestic country is cheaper compared to the foreign goods. So it will increase the export and reduces the imports. So it will shift the NX to the right. Yeah. And the third one, an increase in investment demands. Yeah. So an increase in investments reduces net capital outflows and the supply of dollars in the foreign exchange markets. So here we'll shift to the left. Yeah. And the same, it will increase the real exchange rate and will reduce the NX. And the third policy to restrict import. So if the import is restricted, it means the quota import imposed. Yeah. So it will shift to the right in terms of NX. The NX will shift to the right. So will impact to the increase in the real exchange rate. So the price of domestic good will be more expensive. Yeah. And it will make but the saving and investment does not change, yeah, because this policy coming from the NX sides, yeah, the NX side, yeah, here. So it will increase the real, and then for sure it will the NX will increase, yeah, to the right here, even though the price of goods in domestic country is more expensive, but the export here remains high because the government put the policy restrictions, yeah, in terms of trade. Here is the policy that I mentioned before, yeah. Demand increase, export, the import will be decreasing, and export also here. Export is not doesn't change actually, but the import is reduced. Yeah, and the export here could be reduced as well because the rise of the exchange rate here in the long run perhaps it happens. Okay, here is the determinant of the nominal exchange rate, yeah, and the it's the real exchange rate is the nominal exchange rate. Yeah, you can just uh, modify, yeah, these simple equations. Okay, this one. Nominal exchange rate here, the E, depends on the real exchange rate and the price level at home and abroad. So here the price of home, P star, and here the price of the price of the foreign price, yeah, the foreign price here, yeah, whereby this price is equal to L R plus lambda and Y, and here is the foreign, yeah, the foreign also here, and here is the domestic in the real exchange rate that I mentioned before, yeah, this one, NX S minus RR, yeah. Okay, if you try to rewrite this equation in terms of the growth rate, yeah, so the sigma of the E, yeah, here equal to the sigma of the real plus the sigma and sigma, you can see that here actually is the inflations, yeah, is the domestic inflation, yeah, the star, and here the foreign inflations, yeah. So the delta of nominal exchange rate equal to the delta of real exchange rate plus the domestic inflation minus the foreign inflations. Yeah. So here you can see that the inflations. Oh, sorry. So here's the foreign. Yeah. The star here is the foreign. Yeah. Star here is the foreign inflations. Yeah. And this here is the domestic inflations. Yeah. Here is the graphs about the relationship with inflation and nominal exchange rate. Yeah. And here is the depreciation part. Here depreciations. And here is the appreciations. Yeah, the appreciations. Okay. And the next part, okay. So we go to the purchasing power parity because this concept coming from the rate of inflation. Definition 1 is doctrine that states that a good must sell at the same currency adjusted price in all countries. Definition 2 is the nominal exchange rate adjusted to equalize the cost of a basket of goods across countries. And reasoning arbitrates the law of one price. Yeah. And here is the purchasing power parity. Yeah, here the E times P equal to P star. P star here is the cost of basket in a foreign currency, in the foreign good, of foreign good and foreign currency. It's because the domestic, yeah. And you can solve then here the E equal to the foreign price over the domestic price. Yeah, so the nominal exchange rate actually is the ratio between the foreign price and the domestic price, basically. And you can see here from the simple arithmetic, yeah, if the E equal to 1 here, so the NX will be horizontal. Yeah, here there is no change, yeah, no difference, no surplus, no deficit if the E equal to 1, yeah, the same price. So the inflation from the price of foreign and the price of domestic is 1, no difference of inflations. Yeah. Okay, does the PPP hold in the real world? Yeah. No, for 2 reasons. International arbitrage not possible, not traded good, transportation costs. Good of different countries not preferred substitute. So the PPP somehow is very difficult to be applied. Yeah, because international arbitrage is not possible or very difficult to be conducted. Nonetheless, PPP is a useful theory. It's simple and intuitive. In the real world, nominal exchange rate have a tendency toward the real PPP values over the long run. So we can see that to what extent the PPP can influence the flows of exchange rate uh, in regard on the difference of inflation between the domestic and foreign inflations. And here is the some of the examples, of the Reagan deficit revisited, in 1917. Here is the government's the government saving here, and actual change positive, closed economy, and small open economy. And here, the examples, Okay, sisters and brothers, I want just to conclude. So far, we have learned long-run model for the two SM case, closed economy and small open economy. So we have two type of countries, small and open. Sorry, closed and open, but small. And we have also here large open economy like the US. Is it in between these two extremes? The analysis of policy over the exogenous changes in large open economy is a mixture of the result of the closed and small open economy cases. So the large open economy in the betweens, the policy response. For example, here, a fiscal expansion causes national saving to fall. The fiscal expansion causes national saving to fall, yes, because of the government spending become more, is higher compared to the taxes. The effects of this depends on the degree of openness. Closed economy, for example, here, if the R interest rate rises, rises, but not as much as in the closed economy. So the R here is rises, for example, in large open economy rises as well, but not as much as in the closed economy. In small open economy, no change. No change the interest rate. Why it happens? Because in closed economy, they don't have the effect from the foreign currency, foreign countries. They don't have the impact from or shock from the foreign countries. They are independent in managing the economy. But in large open economy rises, but not as much, because in large open economy, they have huge value of saving. But in small open economy, the rise of R, somehow is no change of the interest rate. Almost no change, because the small open economy is just follower, and it is counted as small values. And the second one, investment falls, fall, but at not much, no change in small open economy. The net export, because closed, there's no change, but in large open fall, but not much as in small open economy, and falls. So here actually is from this so and small open economy are different. And in small open economy, the fiscal expansion only affect to the net export. So fiscal expansion only will affect to the net export. Not in the investment, not in the interest rate. But in the closed economy, the fiscal expansions affect only to the R, and investment. But in large open economy, they are in betweens because they are kingmaker. Okay, the summary is here. You can read by your own, sisters and brothers. Yeah. That's all I think for this course. Thank you very much for your kind attentions. Um, we end. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.